Hey everyone, Jim Gonzalez here, EDI Support LLC. It's another wonderful Wednesday here in Pennsylvania. The weather's a little cloudy outside, but it is warm, which is a good thing. We're going to see if it might possibly rain. Who knows? So I hope everybody's doing well. Hope you're looking forward to talking about our subject today. And what's our topic look like? Why does one order require 3 employees? Let that sink in. Why does one order require 3 employees? We're continuing on what we spoke about in the last live session. So let me ask you, how many people touch a purchase order before it ships at your company? So when a purchase order comes in from your retailer is sending in that purchase order asking for some goods. How many different people have to review or look at that purchase order in order for that purchase order to get brought in, to get acknowledged if you can ship what's on that purchase order, to get the shipping handled where it's put into a carton or onto a pallet or however that shipping looks from the physical product, from that product then being put out onto the truck, from the truck going to whatever facility it's going to, and then in turn being invoiced. How many people at just your company alone look at that one purchase order? Think about that. Because what it looks like is it starts as one customer, one order, one possible spreadsheet. What it turns into, or it becomes, is a sales order is entered or integrated. Operations reviews it. Now, again, you can have somebody that has mixed hats. They're sales, they're ops, and then accounting updates it. Then the warehouse actually ships it or fulfills it. And then customer service follows up. Does that sound about right? Now, amongst those 5 different touch points, you might be that person that does all of that because maybe you're a one-person show that's taking in those purchase orders, fulfilling them, acknowledging them, shipping them out, sending the invoices, doing the follow-ups, doing all of that. What if 3 of your people are touching every order? And the problem usually isn't your employees, it's the process. So there's typically, from what we've seen, or I've seen, is a lot of times there's a lot of people touching those purchase orders. There's a lot of people that are actually physically having conversations about that one purchase order. Maybe there's a credit limit that's hit. Maybe there's a date that needs to be fulfilled. Maybe there's some piece of, the unit of measure, or is this being appropriately checked against what their actual buying sheet says? Think about all of those things. Analyze that and look at that. And really, is EDI speeding up that process, or is EDI slowing down that process, or is it equal to the amount of time it would have taken you to do it manually? So phone orders, faxed in orders, maybe orders that you're getting onto your direct website, whatever that looks like. If your EDI is taking up more time than it does to do it manually, that's a problem. If your EDI process is really inhibiting the amount of orders that you can truly grow and process, that's a problem. You have to start looking at it from a workflow standpoint. So the biggest thing is sitting down, understanding it, documenting it, and truly understanding who all is touching it or who all is interacting. Even if you're a person that's in, sales, and they have to call a customer service rep or the warehouse to review, hey, can we truly fulfill this? Because our system doesn't tell us how much true inventory we have on hand. That's a problem. That's not a scalable problem unless you throw a lot more people at it. So let's talk about how you are creating an order, processing chaos without realizing it. Common small businesses, workflow, and impact of disconnected systems. Common workflow is your customer places an order via EDI. On your side, what's happening is employee opens the purchase order and manually enters maybe the customer, the item numbers, the quantities, the ship dates into a spreadsheet, QuickBooks, or the ERP. That to me is crazy. But we're fulfilling what they're needing us to do. We're getting it via EDI. EDI, again, is to automate. Why are you receiving that purchase order and then having to manually enter it into a spreadsheet, QuickBooks, ERP, various ERPs, whatever that looks like? And then step number 2 of your process, warehouse creates a shipment and updates the ERP with cartons, pallet counts, tracking numbers, carrier information, and the list goes on. Why? What can you do to remove maybe one of those steps or enhance 2 of those steps to make it easier? Because how do you plan on going from 10 orders to 100 orders per day without adding how many headcounts to your team? Think about that. As a business owner, I love my team. I love the people that I have on my team. One of the things I will tell any business owner is this: you don't want to add more headcount. More headcount means more personality. It means different personalities on your team and different people that you have to make sure are good and doing what they need to do and taking care of the things that you have. It takes time to build out a successful team. It takes time to bring on new team members. Think about that. So along in your step number 2, someone enters this information into your EDI portal for the ASN creation with these details. Again, that's crazy. So not only are the warehouse is putting in the information into possibly the ERP or some type of WMS or shipping system with the cartons, the pallet counts, the tracking numbers, then some of these people are actually going in and then entering the information into an EDI portal to create the ASN. A lot of small businesses have a lot of these dual entries and other aspects that they need to go into. And then what they say to me is, well, that's expensive to add that software, or that's an expense to add that integration. A lot of times it is a little bit more expensive on the front end, but your return on investment within 3 to 6 months can be seen quite easily. And some people actually see that return on investment faster than 30 to 60 days. Depends on your business process, depends on how many people are involved, all of those things. Then step 3 gets involved. Invoice gets sent through EDI by someone. But accounting still needs the invoice in QuickBooks. Either they export a CSV from EDI or manually enter that information into QuickBooks or whatever your accounting software is or your financial aspect is. Once the invoice is paid, accounting uses QuickBooks to track receivables, reconcile payments, close invoices. Why can't your EDI possibly help you with that? You have to put in things in place and business processes in place to check these things. There's also things called reconciliation when you're sending EDI. Make sure that the EDI invoices that you sent matches the list that you posted of EDI customers. If it does not, there's a discrepancy and there's a problem. Most of your EDI trading partners will not start the payment terms clock until they've received a successful EDI document. Let me say that again. Most EDI trading partners will not start the payment terms clock until they got a successful EDI invoice. So if you haven't reconciled and you sent invoices that were for March of 2025 because you just realized now, you have all those months when an invoice hasn't been paid. Well, guess what? They're still going to pay you on either the 30, 60, or 90-day terms, whatever you have worked out, because that's when they got that successful invoice. Sometimes you can fight that. Most of the times you're not large enough to win that battle. Again, I'm not picking, I'm talking in reality. So you have to look at what kills productivity in the workflow. Manual data entry, spreadsheet management, CSV imports and exports, status updates, error monitoring and correction, and people. We can think we're great at doing our jobs and we're great at doing everything, but we are human. We do miss things. If you set up a workflow that's based on automation, it'll make your job and your tasks easier. A lot of people want to talk about AI and all of those things. AI is great at automating a process that is structured. A yes or no. AI is not great at a maybe. That's where a human has to interact. So if you can figure out your business flow and you can do it where your documents are flowing through EDI and there's conditional or set rules, that'll help you. And then if you need to do other things that are part of tasks, daily tasks and things that you're doing, maybe you can help to automate that even further with AI. I know I wasn't supposed to really talk about AI today, but that's what pops into my head. And that's what everybody else is talking about. So think about those things. What should have happened? What a modern workflow looks like as you grow is fewer handoffs, fewer phone calls to people that are on your team or Slacks to people that are on your team to ask them questions, fewer systems being touched, fewer manual updates, one source of truth, automated document flow, 850 purchase order, EDI integration, ERP review, and whatever you need to do in your ERP to the warehouse, automated, creates your 856 ASN. 856 ASN is sent, acknowledged, and everything looks copacetic there. 810 invoice is handled, and it's off to the races. And maybe that 810 helps to create your 810 in QuickBooks. Think about that. The right of truth should be what you're sending to that trading partner for what you should be invoicing inside of your ERP system. You can look at it as either flow. I've seen either way work, where it leads from the ERP or the accounting system to the EDI system, or from the EDI system to the accounting system when it comes to the invoicing. Not to mix in and make it even harder, 940, 945 processes also can help facilitate a lot of that too. Data flows automatically, minimal human intervention. Again, we all make mistakes. I do it every day. We all make mistakes, and we want to try to limit any of those mistakes by making the things process and flow. Your team wants to solve problems, serve customers, help with growth by making the right decisions, not waste their time in copying and pasting and re-entering data multiple times. When we start to get into reviewing with these different SMB companies or small to medium companies, and even large companies, we start to sit down and we start to analyze, hey, what does that process look like? How does your flow look? And we start asking and putting pen to paper or typing it up electronically to build out an SOP, standard order of practice or process, however you want to look. So we're literally understanding what's going on and we're putting it down so that, again, everybody sees it, everybody can read it, everybody can flow and follow through it. When is it okay to stay non-integrated? People ask that too. Again, these are just opinion rated. This isn't written in stone. I'm saying if you're with one or two trading partners, and you're not at a high volume with those 1 to 2 trading partners, yeah, processing handful of orders per month, 10 to 20, 30, 40 per month. You have simple workflows. Maybe you're, again, a one-person shop and you handle everything. Well, guess what? You don't have to ask a bunch of people questions. You have simple workflows. You can write down your workflows, and as you grow, you can bring on people to learn how to do your exact way. That's not always the case. A lot of times the case is already, you're getting in there and the workflow is already sitting, and it's already a part of the company, and it's already a part of the business. And that's typically where EDI is. At EDI support, we're not, again, we should not be dictating to you how this all works. We should be sitting there and having a conversation to figure out how can EDI fit into your workflow, because that's what you're most comfortable with. Now, you aren't experiencing errors or delays. Hey, we're not really getting errors or delays. That's not, we don't sit in that bucket. We're doing pretty good. Okay, well, don't go integrate it. Don't spend that extra money if you don't have to. If it's going to save you and there's a time savings, then do it. If you can manage everything comfortably in a few hours a week, why do you need to go integrate it? You gotta always look at, time or money. And I always say that you're either spending one or the other. Sometimes you end up spending both. But everything in life is time or money. Here are the signs that I say you should automate now. It's a pretty good rule of thumb. Ask, would I hire another person for fixing this process? No, you might want to look at automation. If you're thinking about hiring more people, then there might be a problem. You're hiring people to manage transactions instead of growing revenue generating functions. Orders are being entered more than once. You bought multiple softwares to manage your business, and orders are being entered all day more than once by multiple people. Where you have people taking it and entering it into the ERP. That same order is getting entered into a spreadsheet. That same order is getting entered into EDI. That's a problem. You should be really looking at fixing that. You're exporting or importing CSV files daily. It's a huge sign. It's a huge signal. Why are you importing and exporting CSV files? What if somebody's out that day and forgets to do it? Scheduling, mismanagement, all of those things can end up hurting you pretty badly, especially in this world. One person owns all of the tribal knowledge. That one person's out, guess what? Nobody knows what to do. That one person's sick. That one person says, you know what? It's time for me to retire. Or, hey, you know what? I'm moving on to a different job. Well, that's a problem. Now you're scrambling, because typically you only got 2 weeks to grab as much knowledge as that person has. And if they've been there for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and they've handled most of it, and it falls into this little black box oasis, or that nobody knows what's going on, there's an issue. Every time the sales department reaches out to you and says, hey, we got to do the customer, and you go, ooh, it's painful, and you start to cringe, because it's more customers typically means more work. That's not a good way of thinking of things. You should be looking at and celebrating, hey, we got new customers, we got more customers. Hey, that means growth for the company, and that could mean growth for me, financially, benefits, all of those things. You shouldn't have to grow your team to have a huge headcount based on the number of customers that you add on, especially when it comes to EDI. You're spending more time managing data than managing customers. This is usually a tipping point. You're constantly looking at the data. You're constantly making sure it has the right pricing. You're constantly making sure that the quantities and the case conversions and eaches and pallets and all of those things are all handled successfully. That is a problem. We've seen companies successfully run disconnected workflows for 2 to 3 years when volumes are low. They're usually not happy, but they're doing it. The challenge comes when growth happens. What worked at 25 orders a month will break at 250 orders a month. or imagine 2,500 orders a month. It's not unforeseeable. Unless you run a company that you want to just keep it stagnant and you're okay with just doing the same year after year, month after month, and you don't need more customers, you don't want more customers, again, that's not most businesses in this world today. Most businesses want to add customers, they want to add orders, they want to add more to help grow, to get more stability, all of those things. What should you automate first? Automate your internal processes first that meet all of these three criteria. Happens frequently, requires multiple manual data entry points, does not require human judgment. So again, remember that yes, no. It doesn't require human judgment because you can put it in a yes or no box. That'll make it easier to automate. Examples of that: order creation, invoice creation, shipment updates, accounting updates. There's a lot more to it, and there's a lot more out there when you start thinking through it. And hopefully through these videos and these conversations, it gets those things flowing and it gets you to start thinking about what you have out there. I'm going to leave you with a closing question. If you could completely eliminate one manual task from your business tomorrow, what would it be? Think about that. And you don't need to automate everything at once. Start with a task your team complains about the most. Take it in small steps. A lot of people want to just automate everything. Well, that's great and all, but it didn't take a month to get where you're at. It's not going to take a month to get it all automated. I don't care what anybody tells you. The reality is a lot of people are going to tell you things just to get you sold on the sale. That's not what we do here at EDI Support. We do what we can to help. We try to give as much advice based on experience, based on what we're seeing, based on how our customers are doing things and interacting with the world when it comes to EDI, API integrations. Again, don't hesitate to reach out. Don't hesitate to check out our YouTube channel, check out our LinkedIn posts, check us out on Discord, join our Discord, hop in, make a post on Reddit. Hey, if it's about in the EDI channel, you might catch me making a comment back. I'm usually that guy that's on Reddit or that person that you're speaking to on live chat from our website. But we're here to help. My name is Jim Gonzalez, EDI Support LLC. If there's anything I can help to answer any questions that you might have, again, don't hesitate to reach out. I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. And I will talk to you again on another Wednesday. Take care.
Meet Elevate, the modern cloud-based EDI platform designed for growing businesses that may or may not have EDI experience and deserve better. No installs, no servers, just secure real-time EDI that works for you anywhere. Get EDI compliant with 200 plus retailers like Walmart, Target, Chewy.com, Amazon, and more without the hassle of endless back and forth. Elevate automates every document, from purchase orders to shipment notices to invoices, so you can focus on fulfillment, not formatting. We set up your trading partners, map your data, and test every connection end to end. Once approved by your trading partner, you go live quickly and confidently. Have an ERP? You can now easily connect Elevate with your ERP via APIs, CSV, or XML, or use any flat files. All systems will now talk to each other. And when you need help, you get real humans, not bots. We're your EDI team, start to finish. Transparent pricing, no contracts. EDI that actually works for you. Elevate your business today with EDI that cares.